Hello and welcome to the December 2020 edition of World Health Report with your host, Dr. Bret Palmer. As you can see from the graph behind me, cases from October 2020 have been increasing quite rapidly, and in December the increase is accelerating. The majority of the human population lives in the northern hemisphere, so it's not really a surprise that come the winter you have this greater spread of cases. And if we have a quick look back in May 2020 at all these cases, there was 4 million at the time, and then as we progress through the months, you could argue even near enough doubles every month or so. And then December, we've got around about 77.5 million cases and 1.7 deaths. Now, these figures are going to continue going up all the way through winter because most of the population still hasn't had this virus, and it won't start getting better until the spring. Even though we've got the lockdowns are only going to temporarily put a lid on it, because you can't put humanity in a lockdown for months and months and months. It's just cruel. You'll end up losing more people through mental health, unemployment, and the consequences of economic decline. And this is a quick reminder of how the cases are looking with temperature. And obviously, the colder country you're in, the more the virus sticks around. As soon as the temperature goes above 20 degrees, that will probably kill off the vast majority of the viruses. In terms of slowing the spread, it's still the basics of hands, face mask, keep your distance, and ventilated rooms. And if you've got a cough and a cold, then please stay away from others, and try and work from home if you can. In terms of the vaccines, there's been 2 vaccines that have been approved in various countries around the world, and this is very, very important that everyone who is at risk gets these vaccines. They are very, very good vaccines. They're not going to cause any problems. I've seen a lot of things on TikTok and at YouTube saying that these vaccines are going to do horrible things. They're not. They're some of the safest vaccines around, which is quite ironic, seeing how long vaccines have been around for. They are mRNA-based vaccines, and messenger mRNA, that's what the M stands for in mRNA, doesn't translate backwards to DNA. Okay, it's a one-way shot. So when the mRNA vaccine is injected into you, it then synthesizes proteins similar to that of the spike protein found on the virus, and then antibodies are then produced by the body naturally against the spike protein. So if you do encounter this infection, your body is already pre-prepared. It's also vitally important that the people who are most likely to decline a vaccine actually come from poor communities. And the reason why this is important is because disease follows poverty. And this is why if you live in a poor area, you need to get the vaccine as sooner rather than later. And if you get offered the vaccine, you take it. It's as simple as that. No questions asked. This is a safe vaccine. It has a very reliable profile and a very secure profile as well. And there's very few problems with it. So take up the vaccine, please, and hopefully this will then end the spread of coronavirus. Unfortunately, the problem with the coronavirus, or to give it its proper name, SARS-CoV-2, is that it's mutating. There's already been 2 major mutations in Europe. You've got the Denmark mink mutation, and you've also got the UK variant. Both seem to be spreading quite easily. Both are causing a similar spectrum of disease, and both look as if they could be spreading, especially the UK variant, could be spread more easy. Or easier. We don't actually know just yet, and it will be quite some time before the data is in. And so if 20 or 30% of the population refuse to take up the vaccine, then you are the guys that are going to have to end up getting this disease. And if you fancy playing natural selection with your lives, then that is entirely up to you. As a medic, as a doctor, and seeing people die of diseases that are vaccine preventable, I would strongly recommend you get this vaccine. It's not worth the risk, especially if you are in an older at-risk category. But it's not the only pandemic around. I say this every month. There's obviously influenza, TB, malaria, HIV, syphilis, chlamydia, gonorrhea, etc. And every 5 years, this planet does get a pandemic um, 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 on a regular basis. And over the last 20 years, we've had SARS, then we had MERS, and then we had Ebola. So every 5 years, so you could argue this is just a 5 year one, which has gone a little bit more worldwide than SARS, MERS, or Ebola ever did. In 5 years' time, there will be another pandemic. Whether it be COVID again in a different format, or SARS-CoV-2, or will it be a different disease, we don't know. So, in terms of other disease updates, you've got in terms of other disease updates, you've got the Ebola update in the Congo. There's actually some good news. That outbreak of Ebola in the Congo is actually been declared over, which is fantastic. The UK SARS new variant and the Denmark SARS Mink variant, as I described, are both out there now and are spreading all over Europe and into other parts of the world as well. And you've also got in Nigeria yellow fever. Now, yellow fever is an acute viral hemorrhagic disease. It's transmitted by infecto mosquitoes, and so when there's an outbreak, it can spread very, very widely, very, very quickly. Though there's no specific treatment, okay, but it is preventable. It only takes one shot of a single yellow fever vaccine. So if you're in Nigeria and you're offered the yellow fever vaccine, take it. Okay, it does carry a mortality rate, and that mortality rate does vary, but it is significant. It's far worse than COVID, and there's been, as you see, a number of cases, a number of fatalities already in Nigeria. There's also in Burkina Faso a hepatitis E outbreak, and this is usually transmitted by the fetal oral route, and it's mainly through contaminated water. And the risk factors, as are for most diseases, disease follows poverty. Okay, so poor sanitation conditions, and that allows the virus that's excreted in feces to then go into the water supply, and then it infects other people. Infection generally lasts for about 2 to 3 weeks, and people tend to get over it. However, pregnant women are more at risk of premature birth, fetal loss, and also mortality. And the rate can be very, very high. It can be 20 to 25% in the last trimester of pregnancy. And out of those deaths, 15 are individuals that have either just given birth or in the last trimester of pregnancy. And so it's important to obviously we need to have clean sanitary conditions in all over the world, including these parts of Africa. So in terms of other disease, in terms of current conflict zones, no change. There's still quite a few worsening conflicts around the world, but there's no new conflicts. We'll have to see how these areas pan out in 2021, and hopefully there'll be a little bit of a bit more peace in the world for next year. Here's hoping, unfortunately, but it's a question on what our political leaders around the world decide they want to do, and hopefully the pressure of COVID won't make them make any worse decisions than they're making now. In terms of extreme weather events, it's relatively quiet, although I will notice there is a large storm coming, north of New Zealand, going towards the Philippines, called Yasa. The wind speeds there are over 250 kilometers an hour. The other cyclones and typhoons coming into Asia seem to be dampening down and don't seem to be that bad. There's still a number of droughts in far eastern Europe, or if you prefer Western Russia, and also in Western United States, but otherwise things seem to be relatively or a bit calmer this month. But obviously it's going to be a changing it's always changing, this particular area of weather events. There's no current incidents, which I'm happy to report. The last incident was Novichok poisoning of a Russian politician on a plane internally in Russia. Nothing so far in December. In terms of space activity, well, there's a high-speed solar wind on the 22nd of December, and that gave a few geomagnetic storms that should tend to dampen down over the next 24 to 48 hours and should be a lot more sedated, and background radiation levels should be to the normal levels around about the 25th of December. Otherwise, in terms of space weather and solar activity, it tends to be relatively quiet. In terms of near-Earth asteroids, well, there was a close one on the 18th of December. Obviously, it's gone. I'm recording this on the 22nd, and so it's a little bit quieter. There are a few coming up again on the today actually on the 22nd of December, which was one lunar distance away from. Sorry, that's not close at all, is it? So in terms of near-Earth asteroids, although there's 2,000 potentially hazardous asteroids, there's nothing really passing close to us. The nearest one, which was 0.1 lunar distances, that's still quite a distance away from Earth, but it's only 7 meters wide and travelling at 5.9 kilometers per second. Sounds fast, but in terms of space, it's actually quite slow, so it's not nothing to really write home, and there's nothing coming up that we've managed to identify or pick up as a species. In terms of the economic outlook for the rest of 2020, it's looking rubbish, and obviously this is December, and so this is the economic outlook for easily the first quarter, if not the first half of 2021. And it's going to be a pretty depressive economic climate all over planet Earth. Hopefully the outlook will improve with increased vaccination around the world, but it's something we just have to keep an eye on and try and combat COVID altogether. So these are some of the websites I've used. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please like, subscribe and share. Thank you very much for your time. Take care.